Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, well, we're going to talk about a world currency. We're going to talk a little bit about a digital currency and what that world would look like, and kind of what you can do to prepare for it as a prepper. Because it turns out that would have an effect on your life, and we're going to kind of get into that. So make sure that you guys like and subscribe because that helps everything go better. But otherwise, let's jump right into it. And here we go. So basically, the Federal Reserve every years they kind of get together, and actually every year they get together and they talk about kind of what they want to do. And this last session, they had kind of postulated, hey, what would it be like if we had a digital currency? Would it be good, bad? And to be honest, the immediate answer was we kind of think at the moment there might be more cons than there are pros. Now, basically, right now, the dollar is the US reserve currency. Now, what a reserve currency is, all it means is it's the primary currency that the country uses. So, your main source of trade. And so everything is valued and based on that. Now, right now, the dollar is the reserve currency of the world, which when it comes to export, okay? So when you trade gold or when you trade oil, they usually value it in dollars. And obviously you can, point out to me that, lately that's starting to change. Things are starting to be upsided a little bit. So like right now, it used to be that the US dollar was backed by gold. And then we kind of switched it where it's backed by oil and that's a little loose. What even gives the dollar value, Kevin? Like, where are we at here? What makes that paper even worth anything?
When you want to get down to the basics of it, it's basically that we all just agree that it's worth something. It's kind of shaky, but
the full faith and credit of the U.S. government.
Yeah, how we decide on what a dollar is worth is based on a bunch of things. The first one is the exchange rate. Comparing the U.S. dollar to other currencies, but that also involves interest rates, debt levels, and strength of the economy. The U.S. national debt right now is 31,274,800. It was 888 million when I started, but before we started the show, it went up to 889 million. So we're just going through millions of dollars a minute here, going up in the national debt. It's not creeping, it's climbing. One of the other major things is the treasury notes. Basically, the Federal Reserve is printing treasury notes, and people will pay more or less. They'll bid more or less than the value of these treasury notes based on what they think the dollar is going to be for. The other one is foreign currency reserves. So that's other countries that have U.S. dollars stored, and the biggest holders of those is Japan and China. But most countries have a supply of U.S. dollars, just like the U.S. has supplies of other nations' currency.
I have like a 20 in the glove box in my truck. So, I mean, there's that. We all have a little bit, something somewhere.
Little something that we're holding on to.
Right. And what's
$20
weird is
rainy day fund that we all keep in our glove box or the back of our wallet or something.
Exactly. So the thing is, though, it doesn't even have to be like there isn't paper money for all the money that's US dollars. Like if you add up what's in everybody's bank account and went around, there's not actually that much money. So we already have a version of a digital currency. It's
That's right.
just a potpourri, a mixture, if you will.
Hmm.
So the Federal Reserve, they laid out, they were like, well, let's do a pros and cons list because that's what you do in government, I guess. I don't know. I didn't even think they considered shit.
Well, you
But
you're trying to decide which girl to date, but I guess
exactly, right? They heard about it in high school. And so they said it would give poor people more access, because poor people, the paper money is just tough. But if you were
right.
like, I could just send it to you with Venmo, then that would be easier.
Hmm.
But okay. I'm not sure that was a legitimate thing, but that was their first thing they came up with as like, oh, this would be great. It would be faster and cheaper. So, like, you could just use your Apple Watch, or you know what we could do? We could put a chip in your arm,
Oh, that'd be good,
and then
right?
you could just swipe your arm. I've
Just
heard of
scan it.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we could do that. All right. So that's an option. It would preserve the dollar status. So, you know how we're like so respected throughout the world, and people are like, the dollar, that's solid. This might
Right.
help encourage that. And that was sarcasm, if you didn't catch that right
Yeah, I
there.
get it.
That
I get it.
Oh, you saw it? Okay. Um, some of the cons would be they said it would increase credit costs. I'm not really sure how they got there. They said that it would also be negative to poor people because they would because of the increased credit costs. Pretty much that was it. They said something about lower deposits didn't really make any sense. I don't know. They talk. I just, you know how it is. No, that's
It's
not what you
basically
want from the
gibberish
guy
on
giving you
their
the
end of the line.
speech. Well, that's the thing. They're all kind of talking out of their ass. So,
Yeah.
anyway, they put it out for a comment for 100 days. And then if people all liked it, the Congress would have to approve it. And then we could go along with it. But the bottom line, it's not really going to happen right now. That's
Yeah.
as far as the US with a
Well,
digital
things.
currency.
Yeah, things have to gear up and get in the right position. So
Right.
what are some things that might push us towards a digital currency? Like what one of the things that would cause the U.S. dollar to collapse that we'd want to get moved into a digital currency. Things like disruptions to the supply chain. Let me know if you've heard of any of these things going on.
Why don't you throw some
Some sort
out?
of
We'll ponder
financial
it.
crisis. Uh, some sort of a world crisis. Can you think of anything that's happened in the past couple of years? High interest rates. I haven't heard any
I've never
any
heard of
news about
that. Yeah.
high interest rates. Um, Low consumer confidence. That's not really stagnant wages and reduced real world wages. So a reduction in what your actual paycheck can buy month to month.
I
Um,
haven't noticed that.
I haven't heard of anybody getting any raises recently, so that's probably maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just out of my mind, but a lot of those things all seem like they're falling into place either intentionally or unintentionally that would want to move us to a digital currency.
Right? Yeah, you'd like my people been a little disgruntled when this whole at my current employment, the the company was like during COVID, I think we got like a 65-cent raise for cost of living or something for that
Yep.
whole like 4 years or whatever, and I'm not talking like 1 year. I mean like all of COVID, right? They're like, oh yeah, we'll throw you a little something.
Right, right.
And
Nice. An
so
extra $20 a week.
they just sent a corporate guy to come kind of quash the concern, right? And he comes out and they're like, we can't help but all right. So they're having a real hard time getting employees. And you've probably heard this with COVID right now that companies are having a hard time, finding people who want to work.
Right,
It turns out you have a hard time finding people who want to work when you want to pay nothing.
right, right.
So, right. So apparently the big disgruntledness is, well, you're hiring people at $5 more an hour than guys who've been here 15 years.
Hmm.
And like, we're not talking about like awesome people. We're talking about somebody just graduated from high school yesterday
Right. Brand new.
and they're getting $5 more an hour. Well, because yeah, that's the only way they would take the job.
Right.
And then they're like, well, that's not right because we have skill and have been here because we've developed these skills, whatever. And so basically, don't worry, we've reviewed everything. Now, mind you, a lot of people have already quit.
Right.
We've reviewed everything, and it turns out that we are willing, if you've been here for 20 years or whatever, to bring you up to the new higher pay.
So that you can get paid the same amount of
The
money
same
as the
as the
brand
new
new guy
guy.
that just
Right.
walked in.
You're not going to make less because we're not going to disrespect you like that.
Just to
And
be
I was
clear,
like, that's not great.
yeah, the
Go
hiring
ahead.
budget is always higher than the employee retention budget. So
That's how
if
that
you're ever
works.
thinking about increasing your pay, think about changing jobs. That's just the
Well,
way it
that's
is.
dude. That's what the corporate guy said. He was like, "Well, if you have a better offer, you may want to move there." And I was
Yeah.
just like, "Oh shit," because I say that to people all the time. Whenever they're bitching, I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh, you got a better offer? You should take that."
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
"Well, that's not what I mean."
Yeah. No,
And
the
I'm like,
thing is,
well,
people are starting to take that better offer, and a lot of companies are suffering because of that. Losing,
yeah,
losing. What do they call it? Brain drain when a country loses it. That's same thing
yes,
when a company does it. But that's
yes.
none of my business.
Now we're just putting that out there. So, like I said, I think we have a little time with the US dollar. But it turns out there are certain countries. Now you're going to be shocked when I say this, but there are certain countries that are kind of getting fed up with America manipulating things. So here's
What?
it. I know it's outrageous. Here's what I have. Turns out that when we're controlling everything right now, we're like, since it doesn't affect anything, we could just print more money and everybody still has to deal with it. And we keep printing
Right.
more money and printing more money
Okay.
and manipulating things.
All right. So
And
that's
people are
smart.
like, hey,
Okay.
well, wait, I know it is smart until you hit the point where you piss everybody off. And that's kind of like the same thing with your employer. You can push
Okay.
so far, and then you get to the point where it's like, no, I don't think so.
It's like that
So,
company that keeps laying people off and expanding the remaining
yeah,
employees' work duties without increasing their
yes,
pay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So it turns out there are some people now, federal US government officials might call them bad actors.
Hmm.
I know Obama liked that term, bad actors,
Right.
but we're going to say other government leaders, such as there's this guy Putin, you maybe heard of.
No, I haven't
All
heard of him.
right. Well, he's got a little country up north in Europe. There, kind of,
Okay.
it's north of Europe to the east, a little. I don't know. Anyway,
All right.
so he's got a little country, little ragtag thing going on, and he's like, "Hey, I have a plan." It turns out that there's a lot of people who don't like America, and he called up
Really?
his buddies, right, in Brazil. He called up his buddies in India. He called up his buddies in China. He called up his buddies in South Africa. And he said, let's all get together. And we can call it the BRICS, right? And BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And it
Now, did
turns
they call it?
out,
Did they put those countries in that order just so they could have the acronym, or
yeah,
is
because
that
I
what it
feel like
means?
Russia would have come first or China.
Right.
China's like really the big dog. So, but check this out. Now, these countries are like, we're kind of tired of America bullying us around. And we have 41% of the world population in these countries, right? When you add those countries
Right.
up, they control 26% of the world's oil. They have 46% of the world's wheat, 50% of the world's iron ore, and 40% of the world's corn.
Okay.
And it turns out also some other guys like Turkey, Iran Argentina, Saudi Arabia. These are popular countries. I think if you add Saudi Arabia, the oil goes up
Up.
pretty significantly. And they're all like, hey, we'd like to get in on this too. And they said, how about,
Oh, no, they're gonna mess up the acronym. It's not
yeah,
gonna work
well,
anymore when you
they
start
don't get
throwing those
included.
countries in there.
If you're not an early starter like the original 13 colonies, then you don't get like the
Oh
full say. So we call it the BRICS nations. And they're like, hey, let's get together. We're going to freaking challenge the dollar. And we're going to basically come up with a new currency. And even better, to give ours credibility, how about we make ours backed by gold?
man. Ooh,
And they're like, what? Wait,
that's wild.
whoa. And then they're like, it'll be even more awkward and embarrassing for the United States because they say they have all this gold, but we don't think there's any really there.
What?
So when they go to like trade it in for their BRICS dollars, the US will be like, yeah, I have some. It's back here. Just don't look at it. And I'm going to put it in a bag. I'm going to hand you a big bag.
Mm-hmm.
And just put it somewhere safe. Don't even look at it. It's kind of gone something like that.
Okay.
And that's our plan. So they haven't pulled this off, but they keep going all the time that this is their plan. As recently as June 2022 at the G7 summit, this was their plan. So
All right.
that's where we're at on that. Now, I don't know. So China is actually ahead of the curve on this. And China is like, hey, if this BRICS thing doesn't pan out, we're going to do our own digital currency. We're already on board. Now,
They
they've
have
actually,
a lot of problems with controlling their population. It seems
yes,
like that might be good for that sort of
that could be
situation.
good. So China has actually implemented a small percentage of their money is working out with this digital currency, and they're already like underway. This is happening.
All right.
A small percentage, not not everything. They're still there, the yuan or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, China's hard at work on that. They said this is an excellent idea. We want to do this because it will be great for us. This is their words, not mine, to control the population.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Because we can control everything they spend. We can track what they do. And you're going to love this one. If they get out of line and don't do what we want, we just cut them off.
Oh, you have no more money.
You got like fuck you. And, so that's a thing. So I thought that was kind of a neat idea, something fun you could, implement and do. So that's the idea there. So that's really where it comes into the whole prepper thing and how it relates to the survival, prepper podcast kind of thing is you got to realize the kind of power grab that would happen if we go to a complete digital currency.
Right.
What kind of control that the government, and is there anything we could even do to prepare, Kevin? Like, are we just screwed?
Well, I'll tell you this. The United States is the most indebted country in the entire history of the world.
Okay.
Between credit card debt, national debt, mortgages, car payments, the United States has more debt per person than any country in history. The, economically, we're overextended. So I think, honestly, it would be great to have a digital currency. And then we could just let the government think for us. We wouldn't even have to make any of our own decisions. We could just be poor, own nothing, and be happy about it. I don't understand what the problem is here. Don't you want the government to take care of you, Chuck?
That only sounds right. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, I don't know if you remember, but when you're in boot camp, the guys who like have their own opinions and free will, kind of that whole like American mindset, they struggle because they're like,
Hmm.
you can't tell me what to do. I'm my own man. I've been wiping my ass since I was 5, like something
Hmm.
like that.
Right.
But once you realize, hey, they make every decision. They tell me when I have to take a piss. They tell me when to go shit. They tell me
Hmm.
when to take a shower. I don't have to think about anything. And I
Right.
could just
Right.
like stare at the
Just space
wall,
out
drool a
for a
little
couple
bit,
months.
accept life. And, when you do that, it, it allows you to focus and free up time for everything else. It just makes the world better, Kevin. If
Yeah.
you just give up and just do what you're told, life is easier for everyone. Um, I'm not sure that's kind of that American spirit that kind of goes contrary to our DNA.
Hmm.
You probably don't remember, but there was this England thing, and we were like, we do just want to go along and say yes, yes, Lord, and
Hmm.
do what we're told. But sometimes you can do your own thing and be like, no, screw you. It's that whole punk rock thing. It really comes back to, you
Yeah.
know, Sid Vicious and the whole, no, I'm not going to do what you tell me. Rage
Yeah.
Against the Machine, you
Mhm.
get the idea. So, bottom line, sorry, I went off on a little tirade there, but I don't know. Anyway, complete control. You have no choices. You can't do things without the government being aware of it. And now you're going to then tell me, "Well, Chuck, what would you possibly have to hide? Only if you're a criminal would that concern you."
Right.
You know, you again, I mean my sarcasm is like limitless, but I would say that over time what the government wants and demands from us has shifted. It's not the same. It kind of goes back to really, I don't know. I noticed the big change in after September 11th.
Yeah.
Um, I think the police, 2001, the the police went from that. Hey, like to be honest, I was thinking about this the other day. If you remember before September 11th, if a cop came up to you on the street and was like, "Hey, what's your name?" whatever, you'd be like, well, one, a cop wouldn't even do that. But two, if a cop's like, "Hey, what's your name?" you'd be like, "Oh, Johnny, hi, how's it going?" Not, "Oh, show me your ID." No, I need your full name and your date of birth and your no.
Right.
And then two, if they're like, "Oh, I just interacted with you. I need to frisk you because I don't feel safe." Guess what? Prior to September 11th, 2001, you probably would have got punched in the face.
Yeah.
And they would have been like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" But now we're like, "Oh, well, terrorism, we better just comply." And that
Terrorists.
became the norm.
Yeah.
That actually became the new policy, was to frisk everybody they came up with. That
Right.
would never have flown before September 11th. That's a
Right.
complete change in attitude. And now you're like, "Oh, we just do what we're told."
Hmm.
That would have, if you had punched a cop in the face before for that, you would have gone to court and they would have been like, "Yeah, what the hell's cop? Was he trying to assault you? Is he some kind of pervert?" And they would have just
Yeah.
got rid of him. Now it's like, "Oh, how dare you question
Prison.
authority?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll
Yeah.
send
The
you to
Fourth Amendment
Gitmo,
actually used to mean
Right.
something, and it doesn't apparently anymore. A right to be secure in your person and papers, but also stop and frisk. New York City, they could just stop you and pat you
Right.
down for no fucking reason. They don't even have to have a reason. But whatever. You know,
You know,
different strokes, I guess. I guess some people get off on feeling up the other dude's junk, but I mean,
whatever. You
it's
you
none of
want to
my
grab
business.
some. Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing though. And the reason I bring that up is it's just that over time, the over time you need to you know the the authority of the government, that kind of stuff keeps changing. Over
Right.
time, it uh, they keep expanding their powers and taking more from you. And you have to realize that that's the direction that it's going to go. And the more control that we give people over us, and if you can control the entire monetary system and control exactly what people are spending money on, we already, know they have, where they can track and control your travel and that kind of thing. They know where you're going, what you're doing. Especially when you live in the populated areas, where they have all kinds of ridiculous, the Easy Pass and all this other stuff. They're watching you everywhere you go. Basically, you watch these TV shows and they're like, oh, this car went here, 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 and here. And, we have license plate readers set up in a lot of the cities and towns. And it's basically more control and more authority.
Right.
And you just have to be aware of what's going on and what you're giving up.
Right. Right. Everybody has a GPS tracker in their pocket. Everybody's got a microphone in their pocket. Everybody's got a list of everything that they spent their credit card on, spent money on. Everybody's got a list of their license plate everywhere they go through. Easy Pass in New York State and New Jersey. You know what I mean? It's like we're asking. It's like we're asking them to just start collecting our data and keeping track of everything we do. And maybe there's not a public social credit score, but they know what you're up to. And you can pretend that they don't. You can pretend that nobody actually gives a shit about you. But as soon as they do, they can pull up all your information and figure out every little thing that you're into. You like to go down to maybe you like to go down to car dealerships and break in and change the spark plugs around and run the engine so you can jerk off for fun.
Kevin,
they call it cranking. I've
just sounds ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Maybe you want to steal a dump truck and rearrange the spark plug so it runs rough and it gives direction. Maybe that's what you're into. That's none of my business. But now the government knows everything about you and they can catch you when you do that.
What?
Just caught a guy recently doing that. Apparently that's a thing. And the way they found him is they found the blood from when he punched in the window and tracked it to his DNA and promptly arrested him. You can't even masturbate in other people's cars anymore. It's ridiculous.
Kevin, the world is taking an ugly turn.
The world's going downhill, Chuck. The world is going downhill, and the only solution we have is to start tracking everybody, every single thing they do. And a great way to do that is make a digital currency. Then we can keep track of everything they do. You want to buy illegal drugs? Not anymore.
No.
You want to buy something from maybe you want to get something from a yard sale. That isn't approved. Is that person paying taxes? Are they paying taxes on that income from the yard sale? Because that's the law. They should be. Now they're in deep shit because they didn't pay the taxes on that $40 they made that week.
Right.
What are you going to do? Everybody's in trouble. If everything's against the law and everyone's a criminal, you can arrest anybody for anything you want whenever you want to do it.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of how it all comes down, though. I mean, really, but the bigger thing is that it actually gives them the tool of power of cutting you off. Mm-hmm. And that's huge too. Like I said, China's China's usually a little bit more open about their intentions.
Right. They at least are honestly, they're honest.
Right.
They'll tell you when they're going to fuck you up the ass.
Oh, Kevin.
They'll tell you they're about to do it. Some countries you just get woken up that way. Surprise sex is what they call it, right? Maybe the United States is kind of more of a surprise sex operator than a real pimp,
Oh, Lord. Kevin is taking a turn for the worse. People are in the car with their children, and then they get you. They wake up to Kevin in the morning. That's, maybe you were just showing people what it could be like, to wake up and find that kind of shock. There you have it. I speechless. But the bottom line, that's it. They just, when they have that kind of control, you have no options, and it really can shut everything down. And so from a country point of view, it will take away a lot of America's ability. Think of it right now, we can print more money, right? So if we're like, hey, we want to give a bailout and send everybody a $2,000 check, and it's also a way to redistribute wealth,
Right.
We can,
well,
Right,
let's be
because when I
clear though
print more
about that.
money,
They
yeah, go
sent
ahead.
$2,000 to every citizen in the United States. That's a lot of people. But
Yeah,
that's not anywhere near the amount of money that they gave to companies in loans that were all forgiven. You know what I mean? There is a good
well,
$7 trillion that just went out to people, to corporations that didn't need that money, and they just got to keep it. So I mean, it's good for everybody. You know, to
right.
redistribute the wealth to the top of the class and the bottom, and fuck the middle class. I guess there's no point in having a middle class anymore. As long
Well,
as
they got to
lower
keep
class has
working.
enough money to spend, it's fine.
Right. We got to keep working. But the idea is we just print money whenever we want more. And this is kind of, they keep saying that it doesn't matter and that it'll, all be okay and just accept it. And don't worry, it'll never bite you in the ass. Well, that's kind of been an issue. And so if we actually moved into a kind of world currency that's acknowledged or even had something that was considered the standard where oil or something was based in this reserve currency, even if we kept our dollars in the United States, printing more money would not have the same effect anymore. We wouldn't have the ability to, really just kind of control everything. Because right now, when we print more money, because it's the reserve currency of the world, or at least of oil, right now, when we print more money, everybody gets screwed. When there's another major currency that has real value and we print more money, we just screw America. So it's almost like you're taking the credit card away from America.
Hmm.
Because right now that's how we get more credit is we just print more money. Kevin had mentioned earlier that we issue bonds. That's what we do. It's just like, oh yeah, we're just borrow that and don't worry about it. But when there's actually a standard and something to compare it to, we don't have that option anymore. Yeah, we can issue more bonds, but it's going to affect us directly. That's
Right.
like saying, oh, well, I could give myself a credit card. Well, yeah, you could loan yourself money, but it's not really going to do anything because nobody else is going to take it.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, I can go upstairs right now with my printer and print out another $500 and go to the store. And you go to the store, being the rest of the world, and be like, yeah, here's my $500. And they're going to be like, yeah, you just printed that. That doesn't mean anything. That's
Hmm.
kind of what we're doing right now because everybody uses that same printer. It's okay.
Yeah.
But when there's another printer and it's actually backed by something, we could really be screwed.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's why my name today is Rich Uncle Pennybags. That's
oh,
Mr.
nice.
Monopoly from the Monopoly game. That's his actual name. If you just grab all that Monopoly money and go to the store, it ain't gonna get you anywhere. Just like printing your own money.
Yeah.
Um, you got to do a little bit better than Mr. Monopoly. But I guess when you own the bank, you can do whatever you want with it.
So now, how do you protect yourself against something like this from being an issue? What you can do is you can start buying real physical assets. Gold and
Right.
silver are great. However, there does come a point where what value does it really have? It has value in trade to other countries, but I know when there's no products getting here, it doesn't do you any good.
Right.
And when people are worried about putting food on their table, they don't care about gold or silver. They're worried about food. I mean, obviously, if they can go trade, bottom line, if I have a ton of food and you have a ton of gold and silver and everybody's starving to death, which one would you rather have?
Right.
It doesn't, but there's no other food to buy. You know what I'm saying? When food becomes the finite resource, then gold and silver, not so much. So financially, dollar value, gold and silver is pretty cool. Um, my opinion, again, just my opinion, silver has a lot more room to grow and increase in value. I feel like the price of silver doubling versus the price of gold doubling, it's a lot more likely that silver would increase.
Hmm.
Silver is also an item is smaller denominationally where you can break it up and trade for things. I
Hmm.
think that's kind of cool. Um, I think gold has value though, and I think if gold was the right price, I would buy. But the right price is a lot cheaper than it is right now. Silver, it's still at a reasonable price, but I think that these are things you can do over time to slowly build up. I would watch the markets and watch for the dips and pick up some silver when it comes. But there turns out there's other precious metals you might want to invest in.
That's true.
Lead is one that I like to invest in.
Hmm.
If you collect a lot of lead, I've heard that has value.
Right. Right.
Um,
When it's shaped in a certain way.
yeah, you
Um,
can, mix it up. Yeah. In different sizes,
different
whatever.
sizes. Right.
Um, yeah.
Brass also.
Brass
Certain
and lead
has
and
certain value.
gunpowder.
Hmm. Um,
So
but if
food, things that you expect to go up. Go
right,
on.
right, exactly, exactly. Things that you expect to go up, things that are going to hold their value, things that you can buy that you can set and forget for a couple of years, and it's still going to be valuable when you break into that piggy bank again. Um, Another thing that's important right now is figuring out ways to cut costs. Um,
Yeah.
you have a job now, but there's big layoffs coming for a lot of companies in the
Yes.
next year or so, and I would maybe think about that. Be a little preemptive with it. Have a couple of weeks worth of food stored up. Have some stuff squirreled away so that without an income you can still manage to survive for a little while. Um, Beef up that resume if you can. Learn some new skills.
Maybe get that pay raise that, maybe make that lateral move, like Evan was talking about. Um, Another thing you might want to think about is that you need to have things that are going to sustain you, but also like streamline your expenses. So what I mean by that is, maybe you have Netflix, Hulu, Prime, whatever. Which one are you really watching? Is there one that, is better than the other? If Netflix tries to sneak in this whole commercial nonsense they're talking about and they go full time, turns out you can just get that from your Roku TV if you want, commercials. So Hulu has a cheap plan for that. There's no, don't get bullied, is what I'm saying. But a lot of people have subscriptions that they don't even use anymore. They're not even aware of. Um,
Hmm.
Maybe take note of that. Maybe see if you can update this and, kind of streamline your bills. It turns out $10, $15 a month, it adds up over time.
Hmm.
Um, so cut that stuff out. But I would say things that you're going to buy, maybe start to buy those assets now if you have the cash. I wouldn't get into debt over to buy, certain things.
Hmm.
I would almost consider a little debt to kind of up your food storage a little bit, and I'm not talking about, I don't know, maybe that's just wrong. We'll go with that. But I would say having something on hand is very important. Having
Right.
some food that would last you a little bit. Think about, just buying extra when you can. I know you think things are going up in price, but
They're
it
going
turns
up
out
in
they're going to
price.
keep going up.
Yeah,
It,
exactly.
it is the point. The US government is actually talking about kind of buying back some of that 30 trillion dollars we have out there and kind of shrinking the amount of dollars out there. And
Hmm.
that's just going to make things worse, but they don't know how to get a handle on inflation. And
Right.
these things can really cause things to escalate. Now, we've gone with this mindset as a country too long where we can just keep printing money and it's going to have no consequence. And you know what? I honestly was starting to think I was crazy because I was like, well, look, there is no consequence. I mean, we went way beyond the threshold that I believed, problems would happen. I
Right.
was like, well, if we hit 20 trillion, that's whoa, we're out
That'll
of
be the end of
control.
it, right?
That's the end. The whole thing is going to fall apart. And they were like, oh, yeah, you think that's cool? Watch this, and we just kept going.
Hold my beer.
And for a long time, it just didn't matter, and that's the thing. But it turns out the buck might be about to stop, and we're starting to see real consequences. And you're seeing it when you go to buy a house and stuff. And that's the thing, like, honestly, having a place to live is awesome. And I hope you already have a mortgage that's, at a reasonable rate and that you're set somewhere and, you have cheap rent sustained, or, even better, you own your own place. But now you need to start looking for value, because I don't see real estate going up with interest rates going up.
Right.
Um, but also you have to have somewhere to live, and rent is going to go up if you
Right.
don't
And they're
buy a
not building
place.
houses right now because it's not worth the money to do it.
It's just going to be a mess. So the bottom line is you need to pay down your debt. You need to build up the supplies that you need. You need to build up things that have trade value. But it's got to be something that people need. I got to say, I'm not spending 60 grand on a classic car when I can't afford to feed my family.
Right.
And there's a lot less buyers for your high-end cars, then, that's not the kind of thing that's going to retain value. Now, is a working car in that $5,000 price range that's quality going to probably go up in value? It probably is.
Hmm.
But you're just not going to get that nostalgia kind of thing out of the other. Now, I will say that is the time to buy things like luxury cars and stuff if you're, fat and whatever with money. When the value comes down, you buy when things are low, you sell when they're high. It doesn't go the other way.
Hmm.
And right now things are high in price, but they're about to go down in value, but new things are only going to go higher. You need to just find a way to protect your assets by buying things that you need. Buy things that people can't live without, and you can't go wrong, is what I would tell you. And I would say more so having physical assets. I mean, I understand like commodities and things like that in the market, and they are going to go up. Things like wheat and corn and the oil, and these things will go up. But having physical assets will protect you a lot better than things that are remote. But I would say spread it around. So, with that, I would say, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're listening on the podcast, we love when you leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing, how it's going. You have show ideas, thoughts, concerns, things you want to tell us, you can email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. You want some badass gear, preppingbadass.com. And otherwise, I would say stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.